Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting our hands dirty, literally. We're going to dig into the science of soil, looking way past those generic bags at the garden center to learn how you can actually engineer the perfect home for your plants. So let me start with a question for all you plant lovers out there. Have you ever done everything right? The watering, the sunlight, but your plants just seem stuck? Well, you're not alone, and the problem might be the one thing you're not thinking about: the soil itself. Now, what if I told you that you could not only get healthier, happier plants, but also slash your soil costs by up to 40%? I mean, if you're filling up a bunch of pots or a whole raised bed, that is a huge, huge deal. Okay, let's dive right in. Before we can build a better mix, we've got to understand what's actually wrong with just grabbing any old bag off the shelf. There are some hidden problems here. You know, the issues really boil down to three things. First, it's expensive. That cost per liter adds up really, really fast. Second, it's a one-size-fits-all approach, and let's be honest, a fern doesn't want the same thing as a cactus. And third, there's a pretty big sustainability issue. A lot of these mixes rely on peat moss, which is pulled from really fragile ecosystems that just can't renew themselves quickly.
So, here's the big idea. We can actually move beyond just being a soil consumer and become a soil creator. This is where we get to put on our lab coats and engineer the perfect home for our plant's roots.
The fancy term for this is substrate engineering. Sounds super technical, right? But don't worry, all it really means is that we are thoughtfully designing a mix to give roots exactly what they need to breathe, drink, and grow strong. And this right here, this is the core concept. It's a constant balancing act, a tug of war really, between water and air. You need enough water retention so the plant can drink, but you also need enough air space so the roots don't suffocate and rot. Get this balance right, and you've unlocked the secret. Now, to keep that perfect balance, we have to fight the #1 enemy of all container gardens: compaction. This is what happens when all the tiny particles in a mix settle over time. They clog up those crucial air pockets, and suddenly, your roots can't breathe. It's a silent killer for potted plants. So, how do we build a mix that resists compaction? Well, it all comes down to choosing the right building blocks. Let's look at the ingredients we need to assemble our own high-performance mix. All right, your first and maybe biggest decision is the foundation of your mix. This is the stuff that's going to make up most of the volume. And it usually comes down to a classic showdown between two very popular materials. And this chart really lays it all out. On one side, you have peat moss. It's acidic, and the big problem is that once it dries out completely, it becomes hydrophobic. It literally repels water, which is a nightmare to deal with. Then you have Coco Coir. It's a renewable byproduct of the coconut industry. It's pH neutral, and it soaks up water like a sponge every time. Honestly, for most gardeners, Coco Coir is the clear winner here. Next up, aeration. We need something to create those air pockets. You've probably seen perlite, those little white styrofoam-looking balls. They work, but they're so lightweight, they tend to float to the top of the pot over time. A fantastic alternative is pumice. It's a natural volcanic rock that's heavier, so it stays mixed in, giving the pot some stability. Plus, its porous structure acts like a tiny reservoir, holding on to a little extra water and nutrients for the roots. But wait, there's another incredible player for structure and aeration: biochar. Seriously, think of this stuff as a permanent upgrade for your soil. It's a very specific kind of charcoal that provides a habitat for beneficial microbes and holds on to water and air. And the best part? It doesn't break down. It can improve your soil for literally hundreds of years. Okay, this is super important. You can't just throw raw biochar into your mix. You have to charge it first. See, raw biochar is like a powerful, dry sponge. If you put it in with your plants, it'll just suck up all the nutrients for itself. So you have to preload it by mixing it with compost and water and letting it sit for about a week. That way, it becomes a nutrient battery, slowly releasing food to your plants instead of stealing it. All right, we've got our ingredients. The theory part is over. Now let's turn this science into practice with a super simple, effective blueprint that you can use for almost anything. This is the golden recipe. Just remember, 3, 2, 1. It's all by volume, so you can use a bucket, a cup, whatever. It's 3 parts of your base, that's the Coco Coir, 2 parts of your nutrition, like compost or worm castings, and 1 part for aeration, your pumice. That's it. This simple ratio creates an amazing foundation for the vast majority of your plants. And here's where the real power comes in. Once you get this basic blueprint down, you're in control. You can start tweaking it and customizing it for plants that have very specific needs. You become the expert for your own garden.
Let's take an example. Say you're potting up some succulents. You know they hate having wet roots, right? So what do? It's simple. We just adjust the ratio. We'll use less of the water-holding stuff and way more of the drainage materials like sand and pumice. See? You're literally engineering the perfect home for that specific plant.
So is all this effort really worth it? Oh, absolutely. The payoff for taking control of your soil is huge. Let's break down exactly what you get out of it. When it's all said and done, it comes down to these 3 massive wins. First, you're going to save a lot of money, especially if you have a big garden. Second, your plants will be healthier and stronger because their roots are living in 5-star accommodations. And third, you're making a much more sustainable, planet-friendly choice.
And look, here's the proof in the numbers. 4 cents a liter might not sound like a revolution, but think about it. If you're filling a large container, that can be the difference between paying $80 for a pre-made bag versus maybe $65 for your own custom, high-quality mix. That adds up. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It brings us right back to our main idea. You're not just a gardener mixing up some dirt anymore. You are a substrate engineer, creating a perfect, life-giving foundation from the ground up. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you have the blueprint, now that you understand the science, what incredible mix are you going to engineer for your garden?